Hello and welcome to Dixon Cox with me, Nick Dixon, and Paul Cox. This is where we go through the week's news in a fairly light-hearted fashion, reacting to videos, and there's banter, but there's also hard-hitting commentary. It's a lovely mix of those two. And this week we'll be talking about Jess Phillips and the grooming gang inquiry. People are leaving the inquiry and saying that Jess Phillips should be sacked. We've also got the horrific incident of a 10-year-old in Dublin allegedly assaulted by a migrant and the subsequent protests kicking off in Ireland, and some of the treatment of reporters by the police. And then I thought we'd look at the Oxford Union. George refused to learn how to pronounce his surname, is now stepped down, lost a vote, and that's a quite interesting ongoing story. So we'll get into that. Paul, how you doing?
I'm okay, thanks, Nick. I'm okay. It's a bin fire out there, isn't it? I mean, I don't mean literally out there. There isn't a bin on fire. But I mean, the news just gets grimmer and grimmer week by week. Thank God for that, eh?
Yes, luckily we're here to grift off the back of it and put a friendly face spin on the far right.
It's utter carnage out there.
Oh, it's shocking. I mean, especially Ireland. There's literally fire. There's ponies. Well, I should have got a clip of the ponies. There was
one of the one in, one out guys who got sent back. One of the 20 of them come back on a rubber dinghy yesterday.
I haven't even had time to cover that. Yeah, there's a guy, we did the one in, one out scheme, and it's become like one out, one back in again, days later on a lilo, penetrating our defences. It's
incredible. I mean, it was bound to happen, wasn't it? I thought it was like 10 grand a pop, though. I mean, these asylum sneakers have got loads of cash.
Do you think he got like that thrown in? We're like, if you get...
It might have been a discount. He might have actually bought two, like got a bog off previously, just banked it.
Yeah. Or he had his same ticket, used it again.
Yeah.
Because he didn't get it checked when he came in the first time.
Yeah.
Didn't get it stamped. I don't know how the system works.
No, I don't know either.
They used to do that, punch it, didn't they? Yeah. Maybe he didn't get it punched by Starmer.
The stamp on his hand would have worn off because of all the salty water.
Maybe he had a glove and didn't wash it, and then he could use it again.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean,
they think of these things.
All that sort of, not doing anything and just sexually assaulting children when you're in the UK can... take its burden, I guess.
Yes. Well, that's not even part of our stories because we've got so many horrendous stories. I thought we'd start with the Jess Phillips one. I mean, so did you see this? So grooming gang victims tell Jess Phillips to step down over a chaotic inquiry. So people are leaving the inquiry with various complaints. And there was also this one, second candidate to chair grooming inquiry pulls out after survivors quit. That's the BBC. And if you look at the people who have left, you've got Jess, who not her real name, Fiona Goddard, Ellie Reynolds, Elizabeth, not her real name, have all stood down from the survivors panel, and then they're trying to get someone to chair it, and that keeps going wrong. Second candidate pulling out, so it's a total mess. Yep. And Jess Phillips had a bit of a meltdown about it in Parliament as well, if we could call it that. Maybe we'll watch this and then respond.
Can I just be completely clear? I'm suggesting that I will listen completely and utterly to the feedback from the victims that were and still are on. That they are not spreading misinformation at all. But his interpretation is a brilliant case in point, because I will be completely honest. The conversation with Oldham is, do we not think it might be better for them just to take part in a statutory inquiry? That it is absolutely nothing to do with the idea that Oldham is telling me what to do. And the more people from that side, he can hold up his paper and have a smug face all he likes, but the fact of the matter is that there is absolutely no council in this country who will tell this inquiry where it can and cannot go. I have said that 1,000,000 times from this dispatch box, and yet the same thing gets peddled again and again.
Thank you.
So, Jess Phillips kind of losing her rag a bit there. The problem I have with Jess Phillips is she always, she's well known for always making it about herself. I mean, I'm sure she has done, work on this, but she always has the countenance of someone who is so... she's like, I understand this topic way more than you. You can't imagine the work I've done on this. I've done so much, and it's really like you just have no idea. I talk to everyone, and and it's always like she's like put upon. I mean, I'm sure it's harrowing work, but it's always like a feeling that she's so put upon, and she's so heroic, and you none of you could understand the scope of what she's doing. So just all shut up. That seems to be the vibe every time. She's kind of high on her own supply and her own hubris. What do you think?
I mean, she's also pretty liberal with the truth. Just the statement about standing up 1 million times in Parliament, we know that's not true. That would be some sort of world record. She didn't do that. Obviously, an over-exaggeration. To put herself on this pedestal again, that's what it's about. It's putting herself on the pedestal. I've said this previously. This is probably the easiest job in politics now to get this right. Just without fear, without prejudice. Open it up to honesty and justice and just allow this to take place. Don't let politics get in the way. Jess Phillips is making sure politics is in the way. If you have to break boundaries and jump over obstacles in order to get justice for these victims and survivors, then that's all you have to do. And in doing it properly, you'll make a hero of yourself. Jess Phillips won't have to stand up twice a week and tell everyone how brilliant she is. They'll tell her she's brilliant if she was to get this right. And of course, the biggest problem she's got is that the evidence is nothing has happened. So the National Inquiry took a hell of a lot of convincing of these Labour, Jess Phillips included, Keir Starmer. They were dragged kicking and screaming to a national inquiry. That hasn't happened. And putting it together with the attitude of not really wanting it to happen ends up in this complete capitulation where you can't get anyone to chair it. And there must be 1 million people across this country who would love to chair it. And that is no over-exaggeration. Can't get anyone to chair it. And 4 of the victim survivors have stepped away because they don't trust Jess Phillips. So she is becoming part of the problem. She is becoming one of the obstacles preventing any justice. So Jess Phillips needs to take a long, hard look, I think. And this isn't about her. It's never been about her. And how she can make something like this about her is beyond me.
Yeah, well, I mean, Fiona Goddard said this. She's one of the survivors. She said, my response to Jess Phillips, I don't know why she's saying my claims are untrue when she knows I've the evidence to prove it. Now, I don't want to allege anything about Jess Phillips, but this is just what Fiona Goddard's saying, because I don't know exactly what Phillips said. It's quite hard to find. But Goddard says here, shortly after I was added to the panel, I got an email saying we were to be consulted on the terms of reference. And one of the questions on the agenda was, should the inquiry have an explicit focus on grooming gangs or group-based CSEA, child sexual exploitation abuse, or take a broader approach? And so she says it's a blatant lie for Jess Phillips to suggest, as she has done in her letter, that it's untrue there's been the possibility or conversation around expanding the scope beyond grooming gangs. So that's one key thing. The other was Jess Phillips also denies the government has sought to take a regional approach to investigations. This is also a lie. And then she cites a meeting where this came up. So, yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the key things, is whether it covers more than grooming gangs. There seems to be a slight pressure to make it about more than that. And the obvious accusation being because they can't cope with the implications of the reality of grooming gangs, meaning the racial and religious element. And so there seems like there are people trying to push it away from that. That's certainly what these survivors are claiming anyway. Yeah,
and these survivors have been told, have been disbelieved throughout their lives. I mean, these are grown women now, but when they were children and being exploited by these Pakistani rape gangs, they were disbelieved by nearly everybody in authority. Anybody who should have been able to help them didn't help them at all, and enabled the perpetuation of the sexual abuse. So it's no wonder, as adults, these women are standing up and saying, I'm not going to be told I'm lying. And it's so, I mean, it's ridiculous just politicking about this. Jess Phillips will probably use a whole bunch of weaselly words to get herself out of this. But the idea that she obviously knew that question was being asked. She probably was part of the orchestration of putting that question together. So then to say later on, there has been no question about broadening the scope of the inquiry is ridiculous. What did she think was going to happen? Did she just think that people weren't going to pull her up on it? These are people that are literally fighting for their lives. They're fighting for themselves. They're fighting for other people. And Jess Phillips she's got this, I've always said this, she's got this kind of supercilious, a mixture of supercilious, angry school mum that just will not listen to anyone else, has pre-made her mind up on absolutely everything the minute she wakes up in the morning, and no one's going to change her mind, even victims of sexual assault.
Well, I do actually have a video of someone making a similar claim. But I thought let's quickly look at this Shabana Mahmood statement, because Shabana Mahmood was actually stronger on this, and she sort of almost had to deal with the sort of PR of it after the Jess Phillips stuff. And she said, "It is time for truth. For years, the victims were ignored." And she goes on to say, "We came to know this as the grooming gang scandal, though I've never thought the name matched the scale of the evil. We must call them what they were, evil child rapists." And I won't read the whole thing, but there's some key parts where she tries to rectify some of the things that people are worried about. So she says, "Firstly, this inquiry is not and never will be watered down on my watch. Its scope will not change, nor will its intent. Secondly, this inquiry will focus on grooming gangs. That will not change. So people are worried about it broadening. Thirdly, it will explicitly examine the ethnicity and religion of the offenders." So that's pretty big. And she goes on and says there'll be no hiding place for those who abuse the most vulnerable in our society, etc. So this is nor will those who ignored victims and even covered up what occurred be shielded from the truth. So to some degree, we're in this position where only someone like Shabana Mahmood can actually be that tough, because she is a Pakistani Muslim by heritage herself. And that's this weird world we're in. And sometimes that reaches grotesque levels where it's like, oh, we'll get a black candidate so no one can call them racist. And it's just kind of very generic and stupid. But I suppose there's some argument for it with Mahmood, because I suppose in a lot of cases, you get someone from that community. It tends to have more impact. You could use that in any example. If Manchester suddenly kicked off, you'd want to get someone from Manchester, like Andy Burnham or something, to go in and talk to them or something. So maybe it is normal that she, but it is does also show a lack of confidence and it's part of the problem that we can't just call it out and couldn't just call it out from the start. And there was all this ridiculousness about racism, which has led to so many atrocities. But the world that we're in, even though I hate it, you can see why Shabana Mahmood is able to be tougher on it than some people. So she's come out and made this sort of tough statement. And by the way, Kemi Badenoch, as we record, has just done PMQ saying that Jess Phillips should be sacked as well. I don't know, Paul, what did you make of the whole Mahmood Phillips thing?
Well, first of all, with regards to should she be sacked, she should absolutely be removed from having anything to do with this inquiry. She's been part of the problem since the beginning, right from denying Alderman inquiry to denying a national inquiry, all the way through to Weasley words around the broadening of the scope. And just very quickly, the only thing I think that should be broadened is the scope of who the abusers are, because it goes beyond the physical abusers. And I'm not suggesting that some politicians are all, in on this, but this is a perpetuation of the abuse. Someone like Jess Phillips standing up and losing her temper for her own reputation in Parliament yesterday is further part of the abuse. So I would be very careful if I was her, and I would step aside. She has a good history. You and I aren't big fans of Jess Phillips, but she could demonstrate a good history on some previous cases of defending women and children. I don't think she goes about it in the right way. And because she doesn't go about it in the right way, she's now found herself in this position where she's become the story, and she needs to remove herself from that. With regard to Mahmood coming in, well, of course, that's a vote of that's a vote of confidence in the Home Secretary and not in Jess Phillips. They've kind of put some distance between the Home Secretary and Jess Phillips's role and said, Shabana Mahmood, is more powerful. And it's a good statement, but it would have been a much better statement a year, 2, maybe even 3 years ago. Maybe even 5-10 years ago, it would have been a good statement. Coming out and saying it now is politicking. That's all it is. I mean, it's basically stepping all over what Jess Phillips has been trying to do, which is essentially unclear, because it's not clear what she's trying to do. But whatever it is she was trying to do, she stepped in all over that and said, no, this is how it's going to be, which is kind of putting a line in the sand and saying, going forward, this is how it's going to be. Great. But make something happen just like that. And you'll have to if you've got 4 victims that are standing aside because of Jess Phillips, then she has to be removed from the inquiry entirely, I think.
Yeah, and it probably, knowing this Labour government, it probably will happen, but just too late, much like they did with Mandelson and other people. Maybe we'll just end this topic by looking quickly at this from Jade, who was a survivor on Good Morning Britain, which I thought was quite interesting. She had some pretty strong words about it. Let's have a look.
It's making me angry. It's just, why is it taking you so long to want to do anything? Why are you not doing anything? We've been to the House of Lords. I sat in front of Jess Phillips, and blurted out all of our emotions. Our emotions got the better of us. We got a little bit angry with her. And all she wanted to do was walk away from the situation instead of facing it. It's like we're not ever going to get anywhere with this. And we now are never going to have any hope because all we ever do is hold on to hope and get let down again and again.
What do you want to see happen now?
I want the law to be changed. I want these grooming gangs to be, all of them to be sent to jail. High Wycombe happened to me, and they're not sorting out the grooming gangs, but they're wanting to open children homes. Why? Sort out what the problem that's happening in your town before opening more opportunities for these kids
potentially to happen again.
Yeah. Actually deal with the situation.
And there was another part. There's another part just later where she actually calls out Jess Phillips specifically.
In your face the whole time, and actually, I was going to say when you've got someone like Jess Phillips that just smirks in your face the whole time and actually don't do what you've asked of her, like there's no point. There's no point with. Sorry, I don't.
Well, we have approached Jess Phillips for a comment, and we haven't had a direct one.
And she did say, didn't she, yesterday, that allegations of intentional delay, lack of interest, or widening of the inquiry scope and dilution are false. I mean, Maggie, let's come to you on what will.
Well, so I wanted to get that in just so that for legal reasons, but yeah, this is fascinating because the actual survivor Jade there says someone like Jess Phillips smirking in your face, which is not a great thing to hear. And by the way, for the viewer and listener, I've just realized last time we played a Good Morning Britain clip, they demonetized and did a copyright strike, so we had to edit it out. So if there was suddenly nothing there, that's what was happening there. But anyway, what do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's incredibly brave of these women who are now in their 30s, or I assume, to come out and talk. And you can see that they're from a certain demographic, all of them. It's not unfair to say they're from the poorer end of society. These are disenfranchised white women, or white girls as they were, that were deliberately targeted because of that. And now they're being further abused by people in power because they too are treating them like they're stupid. There isn't one stupid woman there. All of these, I mean, a woman like that is coming out now as an adult on national TV and calling out Jess Phillips. They can see her face. They know who she is. They'll now know that she was subjected to sexual assault by the Pakistani rape gangs as she was growing up. This is not easy for her. If Jess Phillips had to sit in a room where these women were shouting and screaming at her saying, "We want justice," she should have sat still. She doesn't have to take the blame. This is the problem here. We're seeing time and time again that the repeating of the behaviours of Jess Phillips. If she's getting up in a meeting like that and walking away, she's making it about her. These women aren't blaming her. They're saying, you're the person who can do something about it. Please, for the love of God, do something. And she does smirk. She does have this supercilious look. She's not the right person to be involved in something as delicate as this, because you always get the feeling with Jess Phillips, she's doing it for her career.
Yeah, tend to agree. I mean, she'd say, no, I've done all this amazing work, but yeah, there's something off about her whole attitude, as we said. No, that's been terrible. This whole thing's been, but Labour didn't want to do the inquiry. We all know they're completely the wrong people to do it. They fundamentally believe it's far right. Ironically, the only one, as I've said, that actually seems like she might want to do it is Shabana Mahmood, calling out, in a sense, her own community, you could argue, being of Pakistani heritage, which is, as I've said, a bit easier to do, perhaps. But she's the only one that at least even sounds tough on it. A bit like immigration, which she also won't be able to do anything about. Yeah, it's all very depressing. So, I mean, actually, we're meant to be a light-hearted podcast. This is a very dark, depressing topic.
Well, what can you do? I mean, it doesn't matter where I talk about this. I can't help but get about as angry as I get about talking about anything, because we know who the perpetrators are. We know that it happened. There's tens of women that have waived their anonymity now. And all you have to do, I keep saying this, and by the way, just quickly go back to something you said there. Smearing everybody, jumping on the far right bandwagon, as Keir Starmer did, basically set this inquiry back. Just as momentum was being achieved, he smeared anybody who wanted it solved, including, by the way, he forgets this, including the victims themselves, because they want it solved, as far right. But with regards to where we go from here, you can't have it should be independent of the Labour Party. It should be independent of the Tories as well. They're both under investigation. It should be independent of almost. You could probably get someone in from the Commonwealth. You could probably get someone in from Canada or Australia. somewhere like that, and say, "Come on in," there would have been no chance of them having anything to do with it, because you will be investigating people, Labour councillors, Tory councillors, Labour MPs. Maybe Jess Phillips, as part of this process, has inadvertently caused more problems. So Keir Starmer definitely, his comments did not help. These people are all under the spotlight.
Yeah, and there's another small technical. Well, it's not that small actually. A technicality where the survivors want a judge to be in charge of it, talking about who should be running it, rather than former police, because they're not comfortable with police, because of course many police were part of the cover-up. And Starmer in PMQs today explained a procedural reason why there shouldn't be a judge, but Kemi was representing the survivors asking for a judge. And the whole of Parliament, actually, every time Kemi brought up something uncomfortable, they jeered at her and said shame and things like this, because they don't want to deal with any of this.
Sake, I'm sorry.
I know. No, it's reasonable, because she's just quoting this. They think she's playing politics, and they can say, "Oh, you're playing politics," where she's just quoting the survivors, and they can say two things: one, you're playing politics, and two, the Tories were in when a lot of this happened as well, which is true. But you can't. You really have no leg to stand on, because it has to now come out. So everything Kemi's saying is a quote from the survivors. You have to just listen to it and shut up. But they're all jeering in Parliament, and it's a very bad look for them, because their jeers may be aimed at, "Oh, Kemi's playing politics," but we just see them jeering, and you think you're jeering at survivors essentially. So shut up.
Well, it's ridiculous, and I don't know if any survivors were in the gallery today. If they were, then it cannot be very easy to watch that, and certainly if they're watching from home or watching it back on, GB News or YouTube or something, then they are going to feel incredibly angry by what they see in Parliament. And as an opposition leader, Kemi Badenoch has every right to stand up and say, "What are you doing?" and hold them to account. And she's doing a fairly good job of that, to be honest, a better job of that than she's done of other things. So, look, this is almost the sort of thing you want to shut Parliament down for. You want to go, "You lot are part of the problem. You need to stand aside. We need to get people in to, you probably don't want the police involved." The trouble is, you've got to, at some point, where do you stop? You've got to start trusting somebody in authority in order for it to take place. But when someone like Keir Starmer, Mr. Rules, Mr. Law, says, "Well, procedurally, we have to do X, Y, and Z," it's like, yeah, of course you do, mate. It's all set up procedurally to avoid the problems you're trying to avoid. You're just going to have to step away from tradition and procedure. Honestly, without swearing, I can't really say too much more about it.
Yeah, I know we've done loads of episodes where we've both got very angry, quite reasonably. Okay, well, let's move on then to another incredibly grim story. I kind of thought in my mind it was related, but the problem is that means it's also similarly grim. And this is asylum seeker was arrested over alleged sex assault on a 10-year-old girl near Dublin Asylum Centre. They don't really say much about the person yet, but a man understood to be an asylum seeker. So a man, we all know what that means. An asylum seeker means illegal migrant. So we can all read between the lines on that one by now.
Well, it's in inverted commas in the Mail. The Mail aren't pulling punches there, are they? They're going, it's innuendo, basically.
Yeah. And what was really extraordinary about this one, though, there was these fiery ponies, which I should have got a video of, but there was ponies riding into fire. It was extraordinary. And then there was Doogie, what's his name? Doogie Beattie from GB. Yeah, he's a great reporter. Yeah. And he went in and they actually attacked him, the police, which was extraordinary. Let's have a watch.
Doogie Beattie is currently at a protest at a migrant hotel in Dublin tonight after a man in his 20s was charged in relation to the alleged sexual assault of a 10-year-old girl. According to reports, the suspect arrived in Ireland 6 years ago, failed an application for international protection in 2024 and has been the subject of a deportation order since March of this year. Doogie, thank you very much for joining us. I'll throw it over to you. Are you safe where you are?
Doesn't look it.
Well, we have just been attacked by the police themselves. We did what we usually do. We get between the lines and then we let the police go past the lines. But the Garda Síochána thought it would be better to pepper spray us and then actually smash in to the camera woman and then smash in to the camera, knocking us to the ground and pepper spraying us through. So it just shows you how much the guards have, and all my time as a reporter doing this in Northern Ireland, I've been in many riots, and I have never, ever seen the police attack the media. They have done that this evening, as well as another photographer. And if you're watching those pictures, you can see the constable making the conscience decision. He looks at me and then comes forward and openly attacks us. So now we're actually at a front line. You can actually just see behind us there, I don't know if you can actually see it, that is a line of Garda Síochána fully in riot gear, and just up to the right-hand side of me, probably 10 yards, is a line of rioters. This has really kicked off in Dublin tonight. There was about 2,000 people here. There's a police vehicle has been burned, water cannon is out, and the TSG themselves are having a hard time putting this down. The people of Ireland at this stage have said, no more, we want rid of these immigrants that are here. And of course, this is a presidential election weekend in Ireland. On Friday, the people here go to the polls to choose a new president for Ireland. This is not a good look for them at this minute in time, and it's definitely not a good look if the police service of the Republic of Ireland decide to openly attack the media.
All right, I got kind of carried away just watching that myself. Though it's kind of it's quite shocking, isn't it? I mean, to actually see the police charge the media and then pepper spray them. And he said that we identified ourselves as media. It's absolutely extraordinary. But this is how far they'll go to protect their sacred migrant child rapists. That's their absolute sacred class of people. And they know that the pushback is going to be massive. Nothing can really stop it. Now you've got people burning stuff. You've got ponies. You've got chaos in Ireland. I mean, Ireland are particularly, they're more, maybe because of their different history, they're not reticent at all about protesting this stuff. I mean, now we're protesting in this country as well with Epping and so on. But with Ireland, they're really like, no, we've had enough. And you can see the authorities losing control, losing their grip. I mean, it's all worrying because you wonder where this leads. But what did you expect when you brought in migrants who no one wants here? They're a massive economic drain, and then they rape children or assault them, allegedly in this case. So, and then the fact that you're charging at media and pepper spraying them suggests you're really losing it.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a place on planet Earth where multiculturalism has been foisted upon a community where it's not being protested. And it's very rare to find an illegal migration hotel that isn't associated with a criminal element, right the way from just petty crimes like shoplifting, loitering, making a nuisance of themselves, all the way up to sexual assault. And there seems to be one nonce per hotel. And it's embarrassing for the authorities. And that's why you're seeing the reaction you're seeing. The police there, I mean, entirely overzealous, by the way. There was nothing else going on. There was just Doogie Beattie, his camera woman, and they probably had, knowing GB, they probably had one security with them, maybe two security, all of which were attacked. I mean, it wasn't like it was kicking off all over the place and there was a bit of a scrum going on. It was just Doogie, lovable Doogie. And they just decided to charge at him like they were bored. And they attacked the cameraman, and then, okay, maybe that was a mistake. But then to pepper spray gives you an indication that that wasn't a mistake, and they meant business, and they were doing whatever they could. And what are they protecting? Because, like you say, they're protecting that they can do it under the guise of sort of community cohesion, which no longer exists, by the way. You can't have multiculturalism and community cohesion. You can have one or the other. Because particularly when it's forced upon a community. So what we saw yesterday in Ireland is sort of endemic. There's not another epidemic, guys. Not yet. It is endemic of what is going on in Great Britain as well. I mean, this is happening in Ireland. Ireland is suffering hugely with this, and that has a lot to do with the fact that they're in the EU and that moving across borders is a lot easier for those migrants. But we're seeing exactly the same problems. You put groups of Asian, Middle Eastern men without any women to speak of in one place, and they behave like sex-crazed lunatics who feel empowered and entitled to do what they want within the community. And, I'm fed up of saying things like, well, I'm sure there's just a small minority of these people that are that bad. Well, it doesn't. I don't think it is anymore.
There's Eritreans. There's Eritreans fixing the bikes of New Statesman journalists. There's those ones that they seek out the New Statesman journalists and fix their bikes.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that didn't happen, by the way, but it's just so funny it's like, well, guys, think about the bikes. It's like children are being assaulted, but guys, your tire will get fixed. Like you wouldn't believe. Dodgy chain.
There's always a kind act somewhere. There's always a kind act somewhere.
I know, it can't be our
but
policy,
then,
sadly.
do you know what? Jimmy Savile raised a lot of money for charity.
Did you see that Marina Perkis? She put up this bizarre tweet about, a brown person helped my kid. It's like, oh yeah, let's change our whole immigration policy then. You've convinced me with this one anecdote that's probably massively embellished if it happened.
Probably. I mean, by the way, her statement itself is kind of racist, right?
Oh yeah.
This guy, for all we know, was a local lawyer, been in the country for generations. Okay, just happened to be brown skin. Okay.
Yeah, she lost it over the skin, didn't she?
She immediately went, well, it was brown. He was probably a migrant. Yeah, probably was a migrant at some point, which again goes against some of the previous arguments, which the incumbent culture of this country is primarily white in skin color. So to look at somebody's skin color, see it's not white, and say they're likely to be a migrant, is proving all sorts of points that she normally argues against. But it's always the case, isn't it? It's always the case. It's always a lefty mum who says these things. Of course it happened. Here we go.
My little boy just fell off his bike. He was a few meters ahead of me on the street when it happened. A man, brown-skinned, likely an immigrant, reached him first. He helped him up, checked he was okay. By the time I caught up, he was already offering me tissues from his pocket to clean my son's muddy hands. These type of stories won't reach the masses. And I said, I, for one, think we should base our entire immigration policy solely on this anecdote. That is my view, Paul. I mean, yeah, classic. You
can skew that any way you like. Brown migrant finds boy on floor and starts touching his hands. Wrong'un. I mean, you can frame it however you want. And she's just chosen to frame it this way. Essentially, another human being has seen a child fall over and naturally gone to attend. It's got absolutely nothing to do with anything else, really. And she isn't wandering outside a migrant hotel. Of course she's not. She's not taking little Pipsqueak for a little ride outside of, whatever that hotel is in Epping, the Bell Inn or whatever, the Bell End. I don't forget what it's called.
Yeah, the Bell Hotel. Similar one here. Chris Bryant, has the UK ever had or wanted a single culture? What about, I think he's replying to something Katie Lamb said. What about Welsh, Scottish, Irish, Cornish, Scouse, Geordie, Brummie cultures, to name but a few? Or the Italians who come to work in our mines? Poles who fought with us and stayed? Indian doctors or chefs? I just wrote, yeah, that's totally the same as third world rapists. You've checkmated us with your big brain. Sometimes I write these tweets and I forget what I've written. Some of my tweets do get a bit spicy. Someone quoted a tweet.
10,000 likes.
Yeah, I did one about Diwali the other day with 14,000 likes. I just said I was amazed. I said, you're about to reform. You're supposed to be the party that stops this rubbish. I just meant empty virtue signaling, stupid posts like that. Which have Christmas and Easter or nothing. Christmas and Easter is fine. Everything else or nothing I could accept from a political Twitter account. But people went mad over that one. But yeah, I mean, Chris Bryant trying to do that trick. I can't stand these people. But and by the way, Paul, the story you mentioned earlier, I just found it while we're on this topic. Maybe just to end this topic, which is here. Man sent to France under 1-in, 1-out scheme returns to UK on small boat. Asylum seeker says he made second crossing because he did not feel safe in France. What is it about? What's so bad about France that many had to come? What does he like?
Napoleon jewelry. What was it? Why did he feel unsafe in France?
Frogs' legs and surrendering. What is he? What's the problem?
Cheese.
Lower working week and early retirement. What is it he's so afraid of? It. How is that? How is that? Really? If I felt France was safe for me, I would never return to the UK. It's like, is that really?
I'll have a day off, mate.
We leave it up to him. Like it's insanity. I'm laughing, but it's terrible, isn't it?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, as soon as you started reading that and I started laughing, there was my conscience went, I don't know if this should be laughing at this. But the point is, it's so ridiculous. It was almost inevitable that this was going to happen, wasn't it? The 1-in, 1-out, 1 back in scheme was always never going to work. The only way now, and this was a seriously dirty word up until about maybe 2 years ago, is probably deportation now, but mass deportation. We've seen it work in America under Donald Trump and his ICE commandos. And it is brutal and it's not for the squeamish, but I think child rape is much worse. And look,
well, I'm with you
it's always the same, isn't it? you know, if the council build a playground and the kids run amok because the parents don't look after them and they trash it, the council take away the playground and nobody has anything. You know, that's an example of how a community tends to work. So the only thing that's changed with these asylum seekers when they come over and they're raping and stealing and pillaging and picking up small children that have fallen over, the only thing that's changed is the politics around it, the multiculturalism, the narrative. You know, if 30% of them are committing crimes, I'm sorry, guys, you're all in this together. You haven't managed one another. See you later. And this isn't even talking about actual, legal immigration. We're talking here about people who, in my mind, have already committed a crime. So, you can talk about safe and legal routes if you like, but at the end of the day, if you're even if you did have safe and legal routes and you were using them to import criminals, then you should send them back through the safe and legal route out. No one ever, these safe and legal routes, according to the far left, are only one way. No one ever talks about the route back. Well, you just let them all in. You let them all in, they can do as much as they like, have as many kids as you want, steal as many TVs as you want, but there's no route back. A safe and legal route, to me, would also have a way back out. So I'm sorry, the time has passed for sort of pleasantries about this. But that's one rape, allegedly. Now, we know, and that's in Ireland I'm talking about, but we know elsewhere, in Epping, for instance, over the summer where it kicked off, the asylum sneaker was actually convicted of the sexual assault.
Sneaker, then, but that actually works. Asylum sneaker.
I always call them asylum sneakers.
Oh, is this one of your Dan Wootton type things?
Yeah, I call them asylum sneakers. I do it here because I've been told sometimes that it might not be Ofcom friendly, so I don't say
sneaker or seeker or
sneaker.
What? You're not allowed to say asylum sneaker.
I'm not sure. They producers who do valuable jobs and want me to keep my job as well as their own have previously said to me, asylum sneaker might not be a good term. But then, I've been told off for calling David Lammy Lamb Chops. These are just nicknames.
This is the problem with it. They've asked me to come on just as we speak tomorrow night, which I don't think I can do. But if people are always asking when you're not on GB, but it is amazing the list of things you can't say on. If you can't say asylum sneaker, we're in big trouble. I mean,
well, I think I definitely said, because I can't say asylum seeker anymore. I always say asylum sneaker.
Asylum sneaker sounds like a new trainer that the Democrats released. Kamala Harris has released it.
Imagine that. You could have a whole branding for these. You could make them wear refugees. So they're in
Trump
their
released
refugees.
those Trump trainers, didn't he? Those gold Trump shoes. And then Kamala Harris would unleash the asylum sneaker.
Buy your refugees and wear our asylum sneakers.
Yeah. Or Mondani, whatever he's called, the shocking guy that's going to take over New York. He could release an asylum sneaker. Yeah. That's a good term, Paul. But do you know what? Go on.
No, I use it in tweets and stuff. It's not really caught on. You try sometimes. It's like when you give yourself a nickname. I want everyone to call me Spud. And no one does.
No one's going for it. Lastly, I'll just say on this, because we're talking about how ridiculous it is that we can't even get one out, and when he does, he comes back in. Given the amount that we need to get rid of. So I was speaking to Harrison Pitt on a forthcoming podcast about his policy with Restore Britain, his policy paper on mass deportations. And they want to aim for 3 voluntary for every 1 forced. So their idea is if they do 150,000 forced deportations a year, and for every 150,000 you have a 3-to-1 ratio of voluntary deportation, it gets to 1.8 million in 3 years, I believe. So this is based as well on Trump doing this. You mentioned ICE. Yeah, and ICE is very tough. But people don't talk about the voluntary. If you create the hostile environment where people are going, okay, I don't really fancy getting my door knocked down by ICE if I have a door. So you just go, I'm just going, because you can get on the app. Trump has an app, and you can get on this portal and you can deport yourself with a $1,000 bonus.
And you've got a chance of coming back legally if you can, if you qualify, I think, if you volunteer to deport yourself. Whereas if you get iced up at 3 a.m., you're never coming back in.
But hundreds of thousands a year versus one who comes back in, you see the gap of where it is disturbing. This is what we need to do, but to bridge that gap of competence is so massive, and political will and lawfare.
They stay even though it's terrible. Okay. And I'm right in saying that because when, in the past, people would have moaned about maybe Polish chaps coming over in taxi driving, builders, plumbers and all that. The vast majority of them, once it started getting a bit rubbish and the economy wasn't working for them, they went back home. They went to where the money was. They're following the money round. They came over to work. They worked and while the going was good. And then after Brexit and the going was less good for them after the pandemic, of course, they went back. These guys aren't coming over here to work, a lot of them. They're coming over here to sit on the state. And you know that because they're quite happy to do so.
Something like 1 in 10 Somalians employed or something I saw the other day. There's all these crazy stats. Yeah, and you mentioned the Polish thing.
10% of all Somalians are employed.
Something like that. I think it's something like that. It was. I saw that stat. I don't want to misquote it, but it's one of those things I saw on X, so it's definitely true. You know what I mean? I just immediately, if it suits my beliefs, I immediately just go, it's probably correct. I need to check what that was, but we've heard similar statistics. I mean, here we go. Somalis have a 10% employment. Where was this? So just 1 in 10 Somalis in the UK are in full-time employment, and this came from some document. So probably is true. That we saw the stats about social housing are very similar. The amount of them in social housing. I mean, and just lastly, you mentioned the Polish thing. I mean, I was speaking to a Polish woman, and her daughter is, because she was asking me for some help for getting her daughter's house valued, and who did I use and so on. And her daughter's leaving the country because she thinks Britain will be Islamic in 10 years. And she's going to Italy, strangely. And some people said, why is she going to Italy? Just go back to Poland. It just makes more sense. But for some reason, she said Italy. And I put this on Twitter, and it got thousands of likes. I mean, I was saying, I actually don't believe that. But, the fact that she's even saying it is disturbing. Of course, I got a slew of replies saying, no, it'll be 5 years. Everyone with no one ever checks the other replies to see if 1,000 people have already said it. People say, no, we're already Islamic. It's 5 years. I eventually said, guys, you're already lost in your heart if you're saying this stuff, because people seem to revel in the defeat. They revel in the black pillness of it all. It's like, I would feel a bit more ashamed to say, oh, we're already Islamic, or it's going to be 5 years. It's like, you may have a hand in it. Like, you may have some agency in this. We don't have total agency because, of course, our government and our prevailing regime takes over, dictates so much. But I'm not just going to roll over and let this happen. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I just thought people just revel in saying it already is Islamic. I don't know why people. This is people sort of who are, with our kind of views. They don't think this will be a good thing, but they all revel in saying it. I find that mentality very strange.
Yeah.
But I was slightly black-pilled, I suppose, in even quoting it. But I at least said, I don't think it'll happen, but it's disturbing. Anyway.
It's the sort of thing that if it had been said 5 years ago, you might have thought it was hyperbole. But it's not hyperbole now to say that the country could well become Islamified.
Yeah, but the numbers are so low still. But it's
the
fact that so much.
They're all practicing. You see, so in terms of we're talking about a religion here. We're talking about a belief system. All these people that come over are Muslim. Nearly all these people are Muslim, and they all believe in the belief structure. Whereas if it was the other way around, and it was white British guys or whatever, they wouldn't be called Christians because they wouldn't necessarily believe in that belief structure. There's so much sectarianism that's gone on in, it's kind of been bleached out of us over our lifetimes, at least, right the way from about the war onwards. Gradually you've seen the decline. We're now seeing through Charlie Kirk, of course, and other people on the right, we're now seeing the sales of Bibles go up, and we're seeing more and more people turn to Christ and turn to the church. But that's a very slow process. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, whilst there might be such a small percentage, every one of that percentage is Islamic, is a Muslim, believes in that belief structure. And it's not true from the other way around. So they've got a strategic upper hand. And with the independent MPs and aspects of Sharia law and changing community values based on appeasing non-Christian values, we are seeing the Fabian step-by-step, slowly catchy monkey approach. And it is a worry for people. If there are plenty of people that would argue that's absolutely fine, but every single one of those people would be negatively affected at some point, by which point it would be too late.
Yeah.
So you have to think very carefully.
The numbers are small, but it's the capitulation. You think of Batley Grammar School, you think of, getting that guy, it was then overturned, but, he was burning the Quran, and he and there was attacked for it, but they told him off. All these things.
Well, they were told him off because the proof that he was inciting violence was that he had a violent act against him.
Incredible. That got overturned, that part of it. But yeah, it's absolutely shocking.
Yes,
but it's more about the capitulation and the regime going along with it, and the fact that they're an organized minority, you could say, which, if you believe in elite theory, always wins. But yeah, it just takes a bit of balls to sort of say no to this, but we haven't found those balls yet.
Well, even in France, where they are quite sectarian, and they've tried to ban hijab and they've banned the burqa. There's still this proliferation of the Islamic faith throughout France. It's a big problem, if not a bigger problem, across huge countries in Europe, like France and Germany, for instance. The reason your friend's daughter, hypothetically, if she is going to Italy, is because they at least have an anti-Muslim rhetoric, but not an anti-Muslim rhetoric, an anti-Islamification rhetoric, where they're sort of saying, whoa, we're not letting that culture overtake the incumbent culture. And at least Maloney's doing that. That's not happening anywhere else. I mean, Keir Starmer is likely to say anything at any point now because he's afraid of Farage. He doesn't know which way to turn. One way he turns, and some of his best loved MPs are likely to lose their seats to independent Muslim MPs. And he looks the other way, and he's got Nigel Farage saying, "Look, mate, I told you it was a problem," and he doesn't know what to say, so he just blurts out the latest thing.
And that's the other thing about Jess Phillips, of course, is that she's in a seat.
Oh, she's in a really tricky,
very tightly contested by a so-called independent MP for Gaza. So, you know what, Paul? We've done 45 minutes ish, and so we'll probably go behind the paywall at nickdixon.net to do the last bit and all the legends. We're doing very well on there now. Hundreds and hundreds of paid subscribers. Thank you very much to all the people who are doing that. It's £5 a month, or just about £4 if you get the yearly option. And loads of great content, loads of interviews recently. Carl Benjamin, William Clouston, all on there. More coming up. Anything you want to say, Paul, before we go and do that?
No, other than the thing I always say, which is keep it real.
Keep it real, yeah. That's your.
If you're out there, just keep it real.
Asylum sneakers, keep it real. That's combining your two catchphrases together. If you're an asylum sneaker out there, keep it real. And go to @Paul Cox
Stop picking
Comedy.
Up kids.
Exactly, yeah. And go to @Paul Cox Comedy for more. And we'll go over now to nickdixon.net. Thank you very much.